Well, hey friends, it's Catherine from CatherinePooler.com. If you haven't seen our This Calls for Cake bundle yet, here's a look at it. Actually, this photo is missing one stamp set. It's missing Be the Good. But if you click over to my blog, you'll be able to see everything in it and all that's included. But just like all of our bundles, you can purchase them at a discount, or you can go a la carte and choose the products that most speak to you. This video, we're going to look at the This Calls for Cake stamp set. The center of it is this gorgeous hand-drawn cake. I am crazy about this cake. And if you've hung out with me much, you know I'm not a huge colorist. I like to dabble just a little bit, but I am by no stretch of the imagination an expert at it. But I'm going to give you some tips for coloring it in this video today. So there's a lot of surface area here to color, and I really like coloring with blender pens. So the best option for cardstock is watercolor cardstock. So I'm using my Misty stamping tool to stamp the image in Midnight ink. It's an archival ink. It's waterproof. It's very dark black. It does stain your stamp, so just be careful not to smush down too hard because of the firm foam pad, when you push down too hard, it will squish into the nooks and crannies of your stamp, and you'll get staining in places that you don't want to. So you can see by mine, I have done that, pushed down too hard. I get excited sometimes, but I always like to warn everyone that that is a thing. So don't be surprised or think you did something wrong. But anyway, I stamped several times with my Misty to make sure that I got a solid, dark, good stamped image. When you're stamping on watercolor cardstock, it has a texture to it, so you may have to stamp a couple times to get that good image. So for coloring in, I really love to use my ink pads and a blender pen. So we carried the Zig blender pen in our store for a really long time, and I love those. So if you have those are going to work perfectly, but we can't get our hands on them anymore. So we have found a couple substitutes. One is the Dove blender pen. You can find those in our shop. They have tips that you can change out. We also have this Tombow blender pen. This is brand new in the shop. We just added it in, and it has a brush tip and it has a bullet tip. So it's really nice. The bullet tip is very hard and is very fine, and you can get more of a marker line when you create with that. So with the brush tip, I like to take my ink pads, give a very gentle squeeze to the lid. It picks up ink from the ink pad and gives you a little watercolor palette. There are also other ways that you can color. You can take a clear acrylic block and you can dab it onto your ink pad. You can take any slick surface, dab your ink pad onto it and pick up ink and make a little pool of ink and color that way. You can also use a water brush or a paintbrush if you choose. So with the blender pen, basically I like to compare it to a clear marker. You're going to dip your tip of the blender pen into the color on your ink pad, and you are going to color onto your image. As you color, it will remove ink from the tip, so it's going to get lighter as you go on, and use that to your advantage when shading. I like to have a piece of scrap paper nearby so I can scribble the tip of my blender pen off on scratch paper if I have too much ink in my blender pen, or if I just want to change colors. So just scribble off until you get the shade you're looking for, or scribble until your blender pen is clear, and you'll be good to go into the next color. Sometimes I use two different shades of ink of the same color to get depth in shading and dimension, but a lot of times, most of the time, I can get a really good variation in shade just from one color of ink. For coloring techniques with blender pens, a lot of times I will lay down a light shading of the base color, and then I will go in with a darker shade and just kind of go along the edge of each petal, just adding a little bit of shading kind of in the same area for each petal. For an image like the violet, I used a flicking technique. So I did a light color or a light shade of Flirty Fuchsia, and then I went in with darker Flirty Fuchsia and just flicked that color from the center out toward the edge of the petals. And then I went in with an even darker Grape Crush. And then for the leaves, I'm just adding a little extra color around one side of the stem or down the middle. And also, back to the beginning of the video, I got so carried away with talking about all sorts of things, I forgot to mention what I was doing. This set was created to have a nice open area in the center of the cake, but also have smaller images that coordinate with the images that are already on the cake, so that you can fill in more areas with flowers and have your entire cake filled with flowers. So choice is yours, up to you. So I've got Coral Cabana, Be Mine, a little bit of Tiara, Fiesta Blue, Flirty Fuchsia. And then I wanted a really light blue color wash over the whole cake, kind of like what the frosting would be. So really light blue frosting. So the It's a Boy ink was a great choice for this. It still was a little darker than I really wanted it, so I had to keep scribbling my blender pen off on scratch paper to make sure it was super light. But I just colored that in, and I am using watercolor paper, so since the blender pen is wet, I don't have to worry too much about pilling the paper or not getting a good blend, because the watercolor paper is great for this. So you can stamp the cake on a card layer, or you can stamp it and then cut it out with the coordinating die cuts. This cake makes a gorgeous focal point for so many card occasions, from weddings to engagements to babies or birthday. Here are a couple cards by Melissa Andrew, and then a couple by me. I will also link in the description below to another video where I used the cake and did some coloring. Hope you're inspired. All of these products are now available in our shop. Links will be below. And I thank you for being here. I hope you're inspired. See you again soon.